Greetings fellow humans, and welcome. Today I'm going to be following a bit of a whim. So, me and my partner Hamish are playing through Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the new Zelda game, and in said new game there are a variety of new characters, including a fashion designer named Cece, who is obsessed with mushrooms. All of her fabric is this sort of stunning mushroom brocade. All of the shapes of the clothes that she makes are very mushroom-inspired. And I got a little bit obsessed. I got a bit excited and just absolutely had to make some mushroom clothes. So I went looking for fabric, and initially I was seeking out fabric that was as close to screen accurate as possible for this because I thought I might actually try to be that kind of person for once, but I got sidetracked because I found this absolutely beautiful multicoloured mushroom fabric and just totally and utterly fell in love with it. There was something about the multicoloured psychedelia of it that just really made me think 1960s. So today I'm gonna use some of my actual vintage patterns to make myself an A-line bell sleeve 1960s mushroom dress, because why the heck not? It's very exciting. I'm very excited. Let's go. Now, in terms of cutting out from this fabric, one of the things that's really nice about it is that it has a very busy overall pattern. I am not worried about what the different areas of the fabric will look like when they are joined, because I don't think they'll even be visible, to be completely honest. However, while it is a very busy overall pattern, it is very much directional. All of the tops of the mushrooms on this fabric face the same direction. So while I'm not concerned about pattern matching like side to side, around the garment, etc., I do think it's important to be quite careful about making sure that I cut all of my pieces the right direction up, because I don't want like upside down mushrooms on one sleeve. So I do need to make sure things are the right way up, but other than that, not really worried about the pattern and how it will match up at the seams.
And this is an excellent time to remind everyone it is best practice to lay out all your pattern pieces on your fabric long before even considering or contemplating, let alone actually attempting to pin them down and cut them out. Otherwise, you may end up in a situation such as this.
So I have only just begun cutting out, and already I think I have encountered a significant issue. When I bought the fabric for this pattern, I bought the amount that it said I needed to make the dress that I wanted to make in a fabric without nap, because this is 100% cotton fabric and so has no nap. There is no directional texture going on. Didn't think about the fact that it does have a directional pattern, so a lot of the things that the pattern instructions tell you to do in terms of cutting this out, things such as dovetailing your pattern pieces top to bottom, are not things I am able to do with this fabric. I bought 1/2 meter more of this fabric than I thought I needed based on the fabric amounts provided by the pattern itself, and oh my goodness, I'm so glad I did, because I think I'm going to be able to barely fit the main pieces of the pattern on this. One of the other things I've realised is that the way the collar is cut is kind of on the bias, not quite on the bias, but a little bit. And I think that in this fabric, the way that the pattern wants me to cut out the collar will look absolutely terrible. So I'm going to do a bit of thinking and rifling through my stash to see if I have any cottons of a similar weight in colours that appear in this fabric, and if not, we may end up with a black collar and tie belt, which I suppose might look jazzy in its own way, but wasn't what I initially had planned. I'd planned to buy enough fabric to make this dress and some form of headwear. Will I be able to do that? Who bleedin' knows at this point. I'm just gonna get the main parts of this dress cut out. I'm gonna find another fabric to supplement my fashion fabric, and we'll see where it goes from there. This wasn't meant to be a chaos project, but I guess I can't help it. That's just who I am. Let's see what fabrics we can find and get the rest of these bits cut out.
So I cut my sleeves and my 2 dress front pieces out of the mushroom fabric, dug the best additional fabric options from my fabric stash, posted those on my Patreon just to get a tiny bit of help deciding from my lovely patrons, and then I decided to call it a night.
Alrighty then, we are back on day 2 of this project, and it is time to continue with the cutting out on new fabric this time. We're looking at collars, we're looking at pocket bags, we're looking at tie belts, and I think some facings. We'll be tackling some notching, some thread marking, hopefully actually getting this thing sewn together. Let's just go full montage. Let's get going, because I'm feeling energetic or something. Let's go. Okay, so the preparatory phases are done, and I am ready to sew, which is very exciting. Even more exciting, I thought, would be using this 1962 Singer 306K to actually put this 1960s style dress together. This belonged to a good friend of mine who ended up moving away from the UK, and they just wanted to make sure it went to a good home, so very graciously gave it to me. They said that it had a little bit of an issue and that the timing of the machine was off, so I would love to use it for this project, but was kind of concerned I wouldn't be able to. However, after having a bit of a test and a tinker with it, it seems like all it really needed was to have the various bits of fluff that had built up removed from the mechanics, a decent helping of sewing machine oil, and some small fiddly adjustments to the tension of the bobbin case. Seems to be stitching fine, seems to be very happy and working well, except for one thing. The power cable needs to be at a very specific angle for it to work happily. So, to make sure it stays at that angle, I have gently wedged a thread reel under it, just to keep it in the correct position. I think it's too late today for me to start on sewing, but the machine is set up. We are primed and ready, and I'm very excited. We are back, and I'm getting ready to go on the sewing. In order to prepare, I actually had to read through the pattern instructions for this garment and have decided to pretty much completely ignore them because they do things in an order that I think is somewhat silly. Therefore, without further ado, let us sew.
So I, metaphorically, chucked out the pattern instructions completely and started by attaching my pocket bag pieces to my 2 front and 2 back dress pieces, before too many bits were joined together and moving things got a bit more unmanageable. Now, with all that done, the next step was to sew the shoulder seams, which I thought were quite interesting because it was something I hadn't seen before, honestly. I matched up and pinned the sleeve edge seams for the front and back, and pinned the front and back dress shoulders together, and then there was essentially a little shoulder curve dart at the top of the sleeve piece, so I sewed that little shoulder curve dart along with the rest of the shoulder seam, and clipped and pressed them as well.
Okay, so the dress is coming together pretty dang quickly, but it is 8 p.m, so I need to go eat some dinner, and then I'll see whether we're returning to it to finish it off tonight or in the morning. But either way, I am really freaking excited about how this is starting to look.
With so little left to do, I decided to just power through and stitch the two collar pieces together. Trim off the corners of the seam allowances and clip the curves, so I could turn the collar out neatly and have nice sharp points. Pin the finished collar to the neck of the dress. And stitch that down securely. Then I finally pinned up the entire side seam, all the way from the edge of the sleeve facing, up the sleeve to the armpit, down the side of the dress, around the pocket bag, and right down to the dress's bottom edge.
Right, I have returned, and the dress is very, very nearly almost completely finished. The only things left to do now are to hem it and put in an invisible zip. Now that is a little bit tricky, and because it is difficult and scary, I am procrastinating by adding an entire extra element to this project. I'm going to make a hat, or like a hair wrap. This Sibon Snood is a pattern that was given to me alongside the dress pattern that I'm currently using, and I decided that making a kind of hair wrap turban-esque situation would add an interesting element to the final look and also mean I can procrastinate putting in my scary invisible zipper. So, because the instructions for this pattern are on its pieces, I took the liberty of tracing the pattern, and we'll see how many of the pieces I can cut out of the actual fashion fabric so that it matches the dress, and how many I need to cut out of a complementary fabric. I will put in my invisible zip eventually, okay? I'm not psychologically prepared yet. I need time. So I'm giving myself time and making this. So the hat is finished, which means there is now nothing for me to do except the zipper and the hems. So I guess I should, do that.
But before I did that, I used pinking shears to clip all of my seam allowances so they wouldn't fray too badly. Then I basted and sewed in my zip. and finished the sleeve facings and bottom hem by slip-stitching them as neatly as I could, much to my cat Puddle's fascination. I think she just likes watching the thread and wanted attention. She usually does. But with that, the dress was complete.
Well then, it's done. I'm very happy with how it turned out. It does have a different vibe than I thought it was going to. Thought it was going to end up a bit more ethereal, and it went a bit more mad psychedelic mushroom hippie, but I'm not unhappy about it. It's all good in my books. There were a surprising number of hiccups on this project for something that I thought was going to be incredibly straightforward. The fabric direction issue and the fabric not really enough issue as a result. And on top of that, the hat. So making the hat, it was pretty straightforward. It went together pretty easily. I didn't have too much trouble. Full disclosure, it is far too small. I don't know what tiny woman this hat was made for, but clearly one with a pin-sized noggin, because it doesn't even go anywhere near fitting. Like, the top of the hat comes to like here. It's tiny, and it does not fit on my head. So in the reveal footage, what is keeping it in place is a multitude of bobby pins. I considered going back in, unpicking stuff, adjusting my pleating so that the size of the opening of the hat fit my head, and I just decided that for the time I had available to work on this project before I wanted to put the video out, that was not a priority, and that at some future point I could go back in and do that when I decide that is a project that is worth undertaking. I'm really happy with the dress though. I had a lovely time making this. I had a lovely time working on the amazing sewing machine that I got to use for this project, and I may well do most of my sewing on my 306K in the future because it's just such a pleasant experience. It's magical. I love it. I also had a really fun time filming the reveal footage. It was a good time. I put on some good 60s tunes and got into the groove. I think it really helped to have some kind of funky imagery in the background, so I'm very grateful that my mum very graciously lent me a quilt top for one of the quilt designs she has a pattern coming out for, which I will link in the description if you want to check that out. But it was really fun. I had a good time on this project. Love how the dress came out. It is super comfy, cool to wear in summer temperatures, and I am very excited to wear it through the rest of the summer. So, thank you for joining me on this little mycological adventure. If you like this video, then liking it is a grand way of helping me out. Sharing it with anyone you think would enjoy it also helps me out. If you want to keep hanging out, that would be very, very cool. But whether you decide to keep hanging out or not, I hope everything is okay in your world, and I will see you next time for some Barbie-themed nonsense. That's the next project on the list. Am I in frame? I should shut the window. Do I want to? I should, but it'll be so hot. No. Yes. Maybe. Yes. 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 I'm not yet fully recovered from the heat. I am literally sat here in my undergarments and a cardigan. That's the magic of filming from here up. And that's that on that.